Well, folks, how y'all doing today? Today is your arrogant narrator's birthday. Yes, I'm 45 today. 5 and 40 am I today. You know? At any rate, I've been thinking on what to tell you all today. We can discuss all kinds of neat things. But I think the most important thing, since, let's just say, not many years remain to me, is life and death. These are important, very important things. You see, you can only have but so many spinster bachelors like me in a society. You can only have but so many spinster nuns, do you know? You only have this. You have to have 3 minimum children per woman per married pair who must remain some kind of working unit at any rate. They don't have to love each other. That's garbage. But they do have to be able to act like adults towards each other and take responsibilities and, embrace them properly. That's it, right? Otherwise, you die. Your kind dies. That's it. That's biological extinction, and it's very real. It's happened to thousands of species and subspecies, of which white Western Europeans are a subspecies of Homo sapiens. I say this now. I am a dumb hillbilly, but I assure you that I'm smart enough to perceive the fact that we're just as dissimilar as breeds of dogs, which are related as subspecies to each other. Or cats, or, oh, Jesus, It's so ridiculous. But be that as may, time will vindicate us, you see. If we follow these rules and come to some understanding of what life is about, and forget about their weird embrace of death nonsense. Do you know what I'm trying to say? Because what they want to do is they want to make you so stressed out that you just forget to have children and act like it's kind of like this. If you have 12 descendants, right? And 6 of them are men and 6 of them are women, right? And they're each going to have 5 descendants, right? That means that right? You will be like the fount, right? Of 72 people over 25 years. What's wrong with this? How can a man such as be poor? How can it be said to be poor? Your type, your phenotype, your very face, my man, will walk through the ages. Do you understand? I have bastard children who will mix them with yours, but don't worry. Hey, you know what I mean? Just I'm a Spencer doesn't mean I don't like to nibble mine every now and again. Now, did you see how this works? Right? Why ask my Spencer? Oh, I guess I can tell you the truth. I'm like the tides. Can you imagine living with a dragon? It was like what it's like staying with me. I'm difficult, passionate, unpleasant even sometimes. And it's better that anyone who likes me somewhat from afar, though I am perfectly loyal and there's no hidden that I'm trying to, get away with. No, it's just not how these things work, It's simply better not to be around when I'm in my moods. It's like Caligula. Don't interrupt me when I'm in the middle of something. You know. My father has people who originated in Savoy, and that's part of the original Roman homeland, Part of our area they heavily colonized during the sort of fight back against the Gauls in the 4th and 5th century, you might say. 4th and 2nd, 3rd and 2nd century, I guess it would be, since it was the let's see, early 5th when they hit down. Yeah, that's about right. They came back about a century later. And the Gauls, you see, they sacked Rome in 494, I want to say it was. Yeah, yeah. And the only thing that saved the Romans, of course, was the sacred geese. That's life and death, too, you see. You notice this. In your daily life, there's no other life. Okay? Now, I'm not trying to be mean or anything. And if you're really urban, like you live in one of those little urban rat holes, you know exactly what I mean. Don't be, don't be silly about it. Right? You're going to know this for sure. The only other life is parasites and basically bugs and such. This is not healthy. You should go outside and see, dragonflies. Just want to hang out in my backyard. Birds. You understand? Now, this does carry with it the risk of bringing in other things, but you have to learn to kind of manage them, I guess. Oh, well, It's like there's not enough other life in the sense that plants. You think that humans just are meant to live in these shitholes. This isn't true. Even the Roman urban society, most people, except for the very, very, very poorest, went out of the city quite commonly. And even then, inside the city, there were vast areas that were like the outside. Do you know? Hey, what's up? Okay, I'll see you when you get here. All right, bye. That's my nephew. He's a stand-up fella. At any rate, we're gonna have dinner. You know. Now, like I say, there's just not enough life. You know, not enough. You know, right? And this is the other key thing. And this is the massive thing here. Is there aren't enough people who want to live for love. Love. Now, this is stupid. They kind of get from this Jedi movie, but they have a solid point. Now, I mean, the whole thing they're trying to mind bang you with is like, get out of here with that. But the basic idea that you have a group that you should have some kind of at least duty to, if not kind regard. Okay, either one will do for my purposes. I don't demand control over your inner man. Much like the Greeks, or say the Vikings, I only ask that you comply out here. What's inside? That's between you and God. God will do this. God will deal with this. That's my view. You know what I mean? I'm about the most light-handed wannabe emperor that could ever be. You understand? All I demand is you follow just and lawful commands that, again, you know, there's also nicely you can enforce order. Right? And this is Imperium. Imperium is power, is life over death. That's you have power over death. That's it. That's the axe in the fasces, is the power of death. Do you understand? That's why the dictator's fasces are not bound, because he has full plenipotentiary power. But the key thing is that he's bound to a time period, and after that, the courts could say, well, now, it was perfectly possible. It should be noted that none of these early dictators, the early 5 or 6 that you read in Livy, none of them were brought to court. Is that remarkable? You think, in a society full of fucking lawyers, okay, a man, because it was a critical emergency, usually what would happen is the Roman army would be defeated, and oh, jeez. Because, you know, the Roman territory was small at the beginning. Let me make this clear. And they would have to fall back on compliance, on something like a king. But the key thing was, it was a split office. There was a master of the horse and the dictator. And it was temporary, 6 months. That's it. Not one day more. The Romans would have revolted. It would have been bad. The plebeian armies would have went insane on such a person. Ooh. Byzantine emperor levels of violence applied to them. You know, chopping up, splitting up in the streets. The Romans were healthy and vigorous in their politics. Now, at any rate, these people would normally go, win a battle, come back. In some cases, Cincinnatus, for instance, you're talking about days. I think 7 days was the longest he was dictator. He passed a couple laws that, in my view, were just. They alleviated some debt. They didn't take any property from people and so forth. You know, there were balanced compromises between the radical demands of both wings, between the rich and the poor. Okay? As far as I can do, that's what I see. Because Cincinnatus himself, while one of the elite nobles, still, it's recorded that he was at his work sleeves himself, personally, when he was called to be dictator. Like, literally went from the plow right to. You can call that hoo-ha. I don't know why Augustus would try to bullshit you. Okay? You know? Roman people, right down to the end, believed that this was the greatest of all virtues, to be able to simply go from the plow to the sword. Think what you will of that, you know? Right? And there are many of these other dictators, right up into the Scipios, who are more controversial, but again, as you can see, they didn't roughshod anyone. There were people who had done obvious wrongs, and they were punished. Fine. And there were laws passed which were needed, and they smoothed things over for a time, and, you know, you can only have so much smoothness in a really class-based society with debt and usury as the foundation of the public funding. I don't know what to say. Rome was a horrible prototype for our model, you know, right? See, so this is where, you know, when the Romans died, we need not, you see. See, we can take what's good from early Rome, from the virtues of the early Romans. There's nothing really wrong when you think about it with thinking that, yeah, it would be a good, just duty to, like, just drop the plow, go, fight for your people, your state, your way of life, your mora, your gods, you know, your father's ashes, and so forth, your temples, and you get it? And defend them, and then come back and bring justice to your people. Now, like, is that so pie-eyed? Am I completely gone? Do you understand? No, this is a good, solid moral contained in Livy. There's a lot of sordid nonsense, yes, but then there's Virginia. You see, the American state of Virginia. Y'all pay attention to this. This is where the name of your state comes from, son. From a man named Virginius. He was a centurion in the army. The army was at war. It doesn't matter who they were at war with, but suffice it to say they were out of camp, Gone from the city. In the meantime, some men called the Decimers. They were men who had been lawfully elected now to write the 12 Tables of Rome, which are one of the glories of Roman civilization. Don't ever kid yourself. A written law is so much better than the whim of the people with money. No kidding, right? Now, these men, however, wanted to have a little tomfoolery on the way down, and it was not the worst kind. They essentially attempted to abduct a girl, bring her into slavery. This was the centurion, Virginia is her name, but it was Virginius' daughter. Do you understand? Do you get the name connection? Now, they were going to usually basically brutalize and use her, and she would have died in the process. There's just no other way. If she had lived, well, do you understand? Now, Romans were not keen on allowing their women to be raped. This, maybe you can call them hypocrites, because they have this whole legend where in the beginning there were no men, and they said, well, the hell with this. We're going to go to the village next door, pretend we're going to be part of their festival, pick up some chicks, and run off with them. And yeah, that was the story they taught themselves. It's called the carrying away of their Sabine women, though they use the word rape, but it doesn't mean sexual ravagement. It means rapine, like pillage and rapine. Okay, excellent. Now, it's an archaic use for the word, very archaic, like, well, early English style. Now, anyhow, as it sits at any rate, though, when the kingdom comes to be established, the last king, Tarquin the Proud, Tarquin Superbus, right? The reason that he was toppled wasn't his arrogance, it was because he went after one of the Brutii women, and that didn't end well. That was, Brutus. Brutus's ancestor, the same Brutus who stabbed Caesar's ancestor. And Publius Agricola, is that his name? Who helped overthrow the king. They brought their families together, their curia, their clans, and toppled them. And then, nominally at least, must have made some kind of terms with the Etrurians. Since, Lars Porsena obviously didn't torch the place. What actually happened there? Who really knows? But again, you see, so the Romans they weren't soft about these kinds of things. Do you understand? So when Virginius was faced with this option of allowing his daughter to go into slavery, which would have dishonored his entire family, or, well, he did what he needed to do. He took a knife, killed his daughter, because he tried. He tried every legal possibility known to man, and it was not going to happen. They were going to have her bound to this other fella, to Appius Claudius, the Julian Claudian family. Appius Claudius's bondman, who was, technically, he was his client, do you understand? And he had claimed that this was his slave and so forth, but she was never a slave. She was born free, do you see? Now, this kind of hoo-ha you can do without a written law, remember that. And so this man had to kill his daughter. He fought his way out, got back to the army, informed the army of what happened, and there was a thing called the plebeian secession. They said, fuck you, we'll go and make our own city. We don't need you horrible people who use us to fight these wars. You see the death part. We're going to have some kind of legal protections and so forth, And from this, essentially comes not the beginning of the conflict of the orders, it's much more of a balanced resolution. The tribunate. The tribunate was allowed to veto the acts of these people in defense of the people. And the people meant every living person that was one of the urban tribes, which was, in theory, even the patricians. Do you see? Right? So it wasn't as exclusionary. The patrician offices were only just later opened up to these other people. Now, the key thing is that these people croaked. We need not. Multiculture killed them. We need not be this way. And with that, I'm going to end my birthday broadcast. Y'all have a good day. Oh, folks, how y'all doing today? Yeah, we're making do. Just be another year in our calendar of years tomorrow. Oh, great. Oh, is that another gray hair? Yeah, oh well. They do come. And anyhow, what you'd hope would come to it, what I've always hoped would come at some point, was some kind of awareness. on the part of the English-speaking Anglo world, particularly the working class of it, right? And I'm not really a class warrior sort. I don't see it as necessary. I just see it as the rich are engaged in it against the rest of us at this point, you know? I mean, I have Warren Buffett to back that up, which is, you know, I mean, I thought that for a long time before I got that quote from him, that, it looks like these rich are the ones engaging in war against the rest. And not all of them, just the aggregate sum. And there it is, right? Now, perhaps we could change this. We could survive if we'd stop this. You see, I know this is particularly weird, but, our elite want to emulate the Romans. They have like this Roman hard-on, okay? And it's there all the way from English liberty on, okay? If you're Anglo and you're English-speaking, yeah, this applies to your ancestors. The French, Canadians, not so much. However, when you did finally get around to it, outright went insane in the proto-Marxist variety, so I don't know, right? Either way, it's bad, this liberalism shite. But essentially, it's Roman liberty that they're talking about originally. Now, if you know anything about Rome, all these concepts, these legal concepts, they're nebulous at best. Effectively, what there really is in Rome is exactly like there was in Great Britain. A very small group of very wealthy landowners, the senatorial oligarchy, okay? Right? And then they had a middle class of the so-called equestrians. They were sort of the merchantmen and middlemen, really. In the patron-client system of things, they effectively acted as one with the patricians, but think of it like one patrician has several of these equestrian families that are sort of his clients, and you're not far off. It's much like lordships, particularly, say, Scottish lairds, where you'd have the laird's house and 20 or 30 lesser houses that, came and did them homage. Very simple. Very easy to understand if you understand this kind of direct stuff. Now, these together operated on the plebs to effectively, in the early Roman Republic, use them as chattel slaves. There's no nice way around it. Moreover, they used debt, usury, long before any Semites ever got to Rome, long before they ever got there, about 500 years in fact, as a weapon against these plebeians, to the point where when we come into history with Livy, who is not some Marxist, that history was approved by Augustus. It was paid for by Augustus Caesar. When you know that, it all comes clear. And remember, Augustus had been keeper of the rolls. He knew Roman history well, real well. Okay? Now, when you know all this, when you know that most of the histories that you read that were written during the beginning of the empire, those were all basically financed by imperial largesse. In other words, they're not some oppositional documents. They're, in effect, they're like the Aeneid. The Aeneid is a state history. It's supposed to give the Romans a sense of who they are, right? As being the great descendants of the hero Aeneid. You don't know this? Jesus, right? Pfft. And people call me a barbarian and low. Pfft. Right? Now, when you get into this, in Livy, it becomes clear that these soldiers are unhappy, that they're constantly at war, and they're being made bankrupt by this. It doesn't call it bankruptcy, but that's what it is in our parlance. When you go so far into debt, you can't pay your way out. Except for there wasn't a bankruptcy procedure in ancient Rome. You simply became the chattel property. You and your whole family became the chattel property of the person you owed money to. They could sell you, cook you, chop you in pieces, or whatever they wished to do. There was actually a law that debtors could carve up creditors. That's not a joke. That's a real Roman custom law from before the 12 tables. Okay? Yeah. Now this is, so you understand, why did these people get all crazy about these military deployments? Because the time you'd be deployed at that time would be the exact time you needed to work on your farm to pay your debts, to pay your taxes. If you didn't pay your taxes, you lost your land. So in effect, all of these glorious campaigns for Roma bankrupted the lower classes. It bankrupted them and turned them into serfs. At best, you can call it serfdom. That's the most nice version of it, and that's under the real late empire. In the more severe version, which is the early version, and you can get the sense of it, literally people would murder people to get out of this. Okay, Virginia, the state of Virginia in America, is named after a man named Virginius and his daughter, Virginia. Do you understand? She, a Decimer, Appius Claudius, in fact, was to have one of his retainers claim that she was his property as a slave. Now, he'd have literally been able to rape this girl, beat her, do whatever he wanted to do, dishonor her in any way, and there'd have been nothing her father could have done about it after the proceeding, the legal proceeding. So, what did he do? Well, he got a hold of a knife, killed his own daughter to prevent dishonor to her and himself. Okay, you understand? For a Roman family, this would not have been tolerable. Remember, the king himself had been deposed for just this kind of thing, because he had raped one of the Brutii women, and this precipitated a whole series of events against him. The Romans didn't take rape of their women very lightly at all. They were very serious about this kind of shit. Now, killed his daughter, broke out of the forum, went to the army in which he was basically a sergeant, okay, rallied the army, and came back to the city. Now, if there hadn't have been some kind of give, like right then, if the Decimers hadn't said, okay, and made concessions, immediately, there would have been bloodshed in a way that Americans can't even put their head around, okay? Romans were perfectly willing to just, literally, if they were ordered to, they would destroy an entire city, kill all life in it, dogs, cats, rats, everything alive, chickens, goats, everything alive. Do you understand? So this idea that, they would have been merciful, no. Now, that's just one example. You can read about this in Livy if you like, okay? No state historian would make this up, okay? This means, of course, that the bondage laws, the laws under which you could put people into slavery and so forth, were severe and easy. When you can just openly plot, as these Decimers were 10 men, they were given power to write a table of the law. Then the law was supposed to be voted up, down, nice, easy, However, they overstepped their power and attempted to become effectively 10 tyrants, okay? And one of them, while they were attempting to do this, literally brazenly was going to take a free woman, turn her into his household slave, and all because he conceived a lust for her. Do you understand? Just that simple. Okay? Now, I don't think he quite planned on... You see, the thing is, with Rome, you're always dealing with two things. You're dealing with this set of mercantile values, and they suck balls. And you're dealing with a set of martial values, which generally the poor in the countryside held much longer than the rich. And they're more honorable. They're someone you could actually respect. Anything that you could respect about Rome, it comes from the martial values. You understand? And the fact that you can even remotely respect Virginius, for that's right. He couldn't have killed the Decimer. There was no possible way he couldn't have got close enough. But he could keep his own family from being dishonored, and he did so. That's right. With dispatch, like a man. Again, stupid feminist harpies would cry about this, but you want to go get raped, you dumb bitch? Especially if you want to go get raped by someone who, after they're done, can just crush your skull and throw you into the Tiber, and that's it. And there'd be no legal consequences about it, because there'd be no one to contest the crime. You'd be a slave at that point. You wouldn't even be able to testify in court. Do you understand? Okay, these dim-witted harpies just don't get it, Do you understand? They just don't. They're not grasping the program, This Appius Claudius was a very powerful man, okay? He was one of the 10 men of all the Romans chosen to write their law, They're from the 12 tables. If you've ever heard of the Roman law, it all originates from that 12 tables. That's what its fictionally basis is, period. Every Roman law after that, in theory, can be derived from that tables. Now, the significance of them cannot be overstated. And again, these people were pressed to such extremes, that they had to rebel against these people to keep them from raping their women. Now, this is against their own countrymen. Okay? Again, Augustus would have never suffered any of this to fly if he didn't know it to be at least more or less true. And he, as head Pontifex Maximus, and he was a Flaminius, and so forth, he had held every single priesthood you can possibly think of, starting at the age of 12, Okay? He was part of the Roman elite, tied in tight. And he knew their history inwards and outwards. In fact, he was one of the last people who could read, write, and speak Etrurian. That means he had access to the ancient scrolls of Etruria as well. Okay? So, no. Modern scholarship can blow me. You understand? The fact is, the Romans would have known their own history better than modern scholars. Now, there it is. This is the kind of thing that this produces. And emulating this results in this kind of stuffs. You know? Now, of course, we're not as manly as these people. If someone tried to rape our women today, we'd just roll over and take it. See Great Britain for more of that. Yeah, they just rolled right over like a bunch of bitches and have taken it. I don't see, you know? That's all they've done. Like, there's no other face to put on it, but they've surrendered. You know? Just utterly surrendered. They're what the Romans would call slave races. Okay? I think it has something to do with the Anglo character of you're either on top or you're on bottom, and there's no in-betweens. There's no equanimity between them, you know? It has to be some kind of rank and station difference, and if we can't be on top, these others must be, you know? That's what I seem to think it comes down to. Also, I think, too, a great portion of the Chavi class have absorbed this, oh, we feel guilty, nonsense, which is utterly ridiculous because, like the Roman plebs and proletari before them, they're the people who get the absolute fucking least out of the entire arrangement and who have done all the heavy lifting historically. The Roman proles were exactly the same as these chavs. They, especially after the Marian reforms, when they could join the army, you know, they were just used as workhorses, literally, you know. Now, the late army was good about this. You know, 50% of you'd make you 20-year enlistments. But before that, no. And during the Civil Wars, oh, Lord, no. The Civil War, 2 or 3 years would be a good, long, active service time, you know. Roman armies fighting Roman armies was extremely destructive. It's just, oh my God, you know. Huge losses. They're almost surreal numbers, you know, 90,000 dead and so forth. Though the Romans were capable of massing this many, you know, people on either side, perhaps 250,000 between two armies. This is reasonable. Their logistical system could support this and so forth, you know. Okay? They just butchered each other. But once that was done, you know, but who made the lion's share of it? Not these legionnaires. They were given land on the frontiers, usually, and that's at best. Okay? At best. And usually it was not the best land. It was the substandard land. That's how it worked. Okay? Chavs are given a little free medical care. Okay? That's what they get. That's like their bit. Okay? Now you can pretend like, you know, like none of them have ever done military service, but it simply that's not going to be logically possible. Considering, too, if you don't have a criminal record and you did anywhere near in school, being in the military is going to be a better job than being down there in them slums. And that's what those are. They're slums. The same as the proletariat housing was in Rome. They're slums. Call them what you like. They have paint on them, but they're slums. You know? Okay? Again, I don't have to lie to myself, you know? Also, too, like the Roman proletariat, particularly the white chavs, have to live with this colored mismatch of the world who go sit down there in poverty with them. Again, you see, I went too far. I haven't even made it to America yet. Okay, we kind of went the other way. We decided we were going to be a bunch of smallholders, but then we went and centralized. But, gee, net effect outcome, exactly the same. Exactly the same. Bleed you off for imperial wars that don't do dick all for the common person. Okay, look, if America was going to conduct a war, right, and it was going to be in our interest to conduct this war, I mean you and I and the common everyday workaday person's interest, you know, it would not be in Afghanistan, all right? It would not be in Iran. In fact, where it would be is KSA, because they're the epicenter of all of the Wahhabi Salafist terrorism that's been conducted against us, right? Which is, you know, you can cry about what Iran's done, but it's just huge comparisons. Boom, bang, boom, bang. You understand? I don't say. This is in flat numbers, you know? Okay, there it is. I mean, if you believe the Al-Qaeda attacked this nonsense on 9/11, if you believe that, then KSA would be the principal person to drop. Oh my God. Because what was Osama bin Laden? A member of the House of fucking Saud. Yeah. He was a royal. Ding, 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 ding. Dimwits. You know? But if we're going to get even more direct, you know where else we should probably be at war? Mexico. Gee. Give me something all that heroin and cocaine and methamphetamines pouring over the border and just rivers of drugs. Do you think that's bad for us? Didn't work out too good for the Chinamen. It didn't work out too good for the Chinamen at all when the East India Corporation, the company, sold them, EIC, sold them all of that dope. It just didn't work out very good at all. It's like it was bad for them. It's like it was bad. I mean, you know? If we're going to be at war, that'd be the place. Okay? These cartels, they're just as brutal as ISIS. They're just as brutal as ISIS. The only difference is it's not promoted in the media like ISIS was. You know, where they're like, oh, look, they've done this. Oh, look, they've done this. Oh, this, you know. These cartels have done all this. They've burnt people at the stake. They've chopped off people's heads. They've bashed in babies' skulls. You name a fucking thing that someone could do that was designed to intimidate or frighten someone in public, and these scumbags have done it at least once. Okay? At least once. And with absolutely no formalities about it, okay? I don't know about that, but I mean, if we're going to play good versus evil fucking games, Mexico would be where to be doing it. Do you know? Mexico would be where to go. Now, it isn't because I hate Mexican people. No, they'd probably be the first people who would benefit from this. Particularly if we could give up this firepower intensive fucking stupid ass mindset and actually defeat the enemy on the ground. Try that. Try actually infantry tactics for once. Be fucking men. Take some fucking risks. Jesus, you know? Because again, if we did this the way we do it in Afghanistan, the Mexican peasants would be armed against us in a week. Something about, I don't know why would these Afghanis be pissed off when we blow up their homes looking for terrorists that aren't there. Because, yeah, every single study, and these are done by the Army itself, by the Inspector General with the Defense Department, which are going to be as rosy as it gets, state that at least 50% of all casualties from firepower are collateral damage. At least. Okay? This is this nonsense like we're just killing ISIS. Really? So those dead civilians, they were just all ISIS, huh? Right. Moreover, like, how many fucking Al-Qaeda members do you actually think there could be in Afghanistan? The number? Very few. Less than 2,000. Right. That was at the top. We blew most of them up immediately. They were dead. Therefore, most of the people we've killed there since then were fucking civilians. Exactly like it was in Vietnam. Where, yeah, that's right. Our stupid-ass indoctrination of the Army of the Republic of South Vietnam in the critical period of the insurgency when we could have gained back the countryside from the Viet Cong. No, instead we bombed the shit out of these people's villages and sent in poorly trained fighter pilots who strafed the fuck out of them. Great. Fucking great. Now this is exactly how you turn a population against you. Simple shit. But Americans never learn these lessons, you know. Like, the Afghans are just ungrateful that we blew up their fucking country. Fuck you. They were not upset about living under the Taliban. This is the part you have to understand. Okay? The people that we're defending in Afghanistan, do you want to go for a real fucking acid trip? Are you ready? Tab your acid, kids. They're the former communists. What? Okay, so we set these crazy ass fucking mujahideen up. We gave them training, weapons. We made them a top grade light infantry force, frankly. Okay. And then, so they could defeat these communists and the Soviets, right? Right? Then they wind up defeating the communists, taking the government from them, and we toppled them later. And then back to communists. What? But yes, that's very largely what happened. The only thing that even makes it so that they can muff it around like it didn't happen this way is Mullah Omar. He's sort of he wasn't with the Taliban and he wasn't with the pro-communist forces. He's one of those, he doesn't fit into the easy narrative, you know? So they can hide the Northern Alliance behind his memory. But a good portion of that is outright communists. I mean, Communist Party Afghanistan style, you know? Communists. Right? They were in power from, I don't know, what is it, 83 to 90, something like this. They were effectively in power, you know? Okay. Right? I mean, it's just reality. It's kind of funny when people, but they're communists. So, I mean, we have a choice between religious head choppers and communist head choppers, and we've chosen the communists until we backstab them again and support the Taliban. Okay, then there's the other little puppet show that they're playing with you with, oh, the Taliban are from Pakistan. No, they're Pashto. They don't respect that fucking line. That line was made by a British diplomat who didn't know his ass from a hole in the ground. There's a tribe of people up there called the Pashto people, or the Pushtos. They have no fucking interest in Afghanistan or Pakistan. They want their own homeland. Okay? Now, of course, you're not supposed to know this because, oh, you know, reactionary. But the fact is, you know, there's some notion that if a British diplomat put a line on a map, that's just the line we're stuck with. Well, fuck that. Okay? And this is exactly one of those instances. There is no border there. The people are exactly the same. The language is the same. The religion is the same. The customs are the same. Who gives a fuck about the technicalities of sovereignty? This is lawyer gibberish. Okay, what it is the Taliban is effectively Pashto. Okay, it is not Afghanistan. It is Pashto almost entirely. Do you understand? Like 9 out of 10, maybe more, really, realistically. You know, the only other people are Dari, and they are close kin to the. You understand how this works? But effectively, all of these other groups that are called the Taliban, that's mislabeling. Okay, this is a fact. Okay, the Defense Department knows this. The establishment of America know this. We do this so that we can continue this fucking war against just any old buddy in Afghanistan. Because remember this, random adult male in Afghanistan, they're going to be armed. And since we assume that everyone that's armed is an insurgent, everyone's a fucking insurgent. You understand? This is the kind of stupid ass nonsense that brings more wars, right? It brings never-ending war. Afghanistan's not meant to be won. It's just meant to be fought forever. They intend to be there. Read the look, the Grand Chess Board is all you need to read. Ziggy Brzezinski. You can get it right now. Ba-bing. It's effectively, that's a strategic location that the Imperium intends to keep. They intend to keep it because then they can block the rest of Central Asia to China. They can act as a counterbalance to Russian influence. They can ensure the way that Pakistan will go. They have a good way to check with India and so forth, you know. It is a vastly important locale, just geographically, and that ignores any resource extraction possible, of which there are trillions. That's trillions of dollars in resources in Afghanistan. Trillions. And those are estimates. Lowball estimates, I might note. So, do you see? That's why we're there. Trillions. Count it with a T. Trillions. You understand? North Korea, they have trillions of dollars of resources. About 8 to 9 is the number I recall. These numbers change as you get better data, you know. Nevertheless, $8 trillion is an awful lot of reason to care about peace with these people. Do you see? Okay? And so forth. Iran, about 40 trillion that we could extract from them, and so forth. Do you see? We could get back on top if we could get Iran's oil. Now, you see how this works? This is why you hear about these things. You know? If you think it's any other reason, again, you're falling for this Rome 2.0 shit. Again, with Rome, it was always just as easy. What do they have that we want? Oh, that's why we're going to make peace with them. Oh, folks, how y'all doing today? Oh, not so bad, all things considered. At any rate, we were sitting here and we were thinking, you know, how can we pull the pin on the American empire most efficiently, most safely, really, for the white world, America, and the West in general, right? How can that be done? Petrodollar. The petrodollar is the answer. It's both the enablement for it and the key to undoing it. Okay. For those of you who don't understand, at the end of World War II, there were a bunch of series of agreements made. They're called the Bretton Woods agreements, okay? They basically say, and it's really easy, America gets to export dollars and things, and our allies get to enjoy our economy. We also act as world enforcer, but we get paid for it. This is essentially how it works out. The petrodollar is the mechanism by which all of this is paid for. It enables the export of the American dollar effectively. Okay? Because you need these American dollars to buy this petroleum. It's a control pin. Right. Without it, there can be no American world empire mission because we'd have to fall back on our own production, which is fucking low. Why is it low, you might ask? Because we could export the dollars, you say. This is so you can understand. It was also cheaper to export the capital and not pay the labor costs at home. Now, our closest allies, Britain, did much the same because they piggybacked on us. Fine enough, you know? I mean, I'm not blaming him. There's no blame. This was a stupid maneuver by all the governments that have done this. In fact, I think it's just retarded all the way around, but there's no individual blame. So if you Brits don't get mad, and Americans sit down and be quiet. Now, as it sits, this has resulted in the only thing we really have is much like ancient Rome. They exported crap from the sewers. That's it. That's all they had by the end. Is that pretty terrible? Even if that's only an anecdote, that's a terrible anecdote. Think about it. You don't want to be like ancient Rome, right? You want to have real production. The only thing to stimulate that is to make America fall back on its own resources. Without the dollar to force the world to give us stuff, because that's exactly what happens. If government won't take dollars for its goods, whether they're petroleum or not, that government goes down. You understand? If a currency will not allow itself to be converted into dollars, and so forth, you see? Now, this is a powerful mechanism. It doesn't give the workaday Americans or anybody, like from my level all the way up to, well, really, the 99% of you, not even the upper, but barely a few of the 1%ers, any real power, do you understand? It gives banks and international corporations, however, who can act through, the United States, Great Britain, France, and all these other Western European countries at the same time, gives them great power. It was always meant to do that. America's just have you ever seen the Mad Max movie where there's the head and the master blaster? Yeah, well, we're blaster and somebody else is master, The ones with the money. Money controls this whole thing. That petrodollar is the pin to it. You pull that, you have to fall back on a new financing system. And the only thing that we have to base it on, because we don't have enough gold reserves, is our own production, which is still worth quite a bit. Now, it would take a revaluation of GDP because these numbers are phony, okay? But still, we will have a substantial amount with which to restructure our debt with and keep ourselves going. However, to do this, you'll have to have people with a certain will and a certain tact, because the Western Europeans are going to want their money back, rightfully. The Russians are going to want their money back, rightfully. The Chinese are not getting a penny. That's all they get. The Japanese will give them partial payment, but we're going to expect them to take over naval patrols to thump on the Japanese. Oh, they'll like this job. Banzai is what they have to say. The Australians and New Zealanders will be repaid in full. They're our kin. Canada will be repaid in full. They're our kin. Great Britain will be paid in full. They're our kin. You know what I mean? Okay? That's easy. So we're not going to, we're going to default on our debts. What would happen? We just have to restructure them. Incidentally, NATO would have to go away too, which would mean that Western Europe could no longer live in this utopian fantasy world. They would have to sort of come into defending themselves, and at some point, I think it would be good. I think it would, because I don't think that Spain and France and Italy and basically Greece would agree. Let's just allow these savages to invade us by sea. No, the Greeks take to the sea like dolphins. No. No, they could easily intercept all of that on their own, given the ships and the fuel to do it. Okay? And I think that busting up the NATO thing would allow for a greater, easier dissolution of the EU into something like a trade union and not a political entity. Right? Which a trade union, I agree, is good. It's healthy. There's a productive, synergy there. But as a political unit, the EU is garbage. And if you pull up petrodollar, I don't think that the euro could survive. And some kind of new basket currency based on the production in Europe, would have to be come up with. You understand? It's just that simple. Or do you want to face real bankruptcy and allow the bankers to just rape you? Who wants to do that? And what sort of loyal upper class that were ruling a country would allow this? Any upper class would allow this? They're traitors, Okay? This is certainly not radical, Notice we're not talking about, means of production or state enterprise. No. We're talking about the financing that underlies all these other things. You can go whatever route you want, though I wouldn't go the centralized communist route if I was you. That usually tends to fail. Just like the Gilded Ages tend to produce rebellions. I don't know. You got to find a happy medium somewhere along the, sort of managerial free market economy. That's probably the best. I don't say, right? With certain rules, of course, like you don't get to undercut us for these slave countries, we don't import your slaves. That's another thing, because there would be no more just artificial surplus of money, right? We could no longer import slaves from the third world. There would have to be, that's right, proper wages paid here. And remember this: all America, all Western Europe, with just a minimal amount of just remote even planning of any kind, could easily maintain enough food, fuel, clothing, and housing for none of you to be fucked off during this transition period. This can be done orderly and with a very, very large amount of stability, Now, I know some of you, the very, very highest and the very, very, that might come a little towards the middle more, but this is irrelevant. This is in any situation. Let me get real. This is a tendency going on all the time, but anyhow, it's just more pronounced during periods of instability. And of course it would be, because these bankers wouldn't just be like, oh, I'll just give up the petrodollar and allow you peasants from out under my hand. Of course they're not going to do that. Not willingly. But pulling petrodollar takes away a vast, ties one hand behind their back, gives you a lot better chance of getting a hold of the other one. The faster you get a hold of the other one, the faster you have the other one tied up, the less this instability, do you know? You see what I'm trying to say? It's not complex, And again, you don't have to borrow money from these Rumpelstiltskin thieves. Look, follow my logic here. All of these central banks in the Western world, right? They are basically a corporation that has been given powers by officially the sovereignty of the state, yes? By whatever mechanism, whether it's a parliament, a king, a proclamation, a plebiscite, by the sovereignty of the state, yeah? Well, why can't you create one that does it for you? For your profit, a not-for-profit entity. That is, one where there's a statutory limit of how much it makes that it keeps for itself, to keep functioning and keep paying its payroll, and this is pretty easily predicted. And then everything above that goes back to the treasury, accrues to the people, as it were. What's wrong with this? This would seem to give the people a very, very good reason to have an interest in their financial system being sound, stable, and reliable. Because that keeps their taxes lower. Or it allows them to have slightly higher taxes and have a lot more services and resources available on whatever basis they'd like. There will always be things that must be paid for from a central purse. Not all things, but some things. Okay? The only debate is what? You see what I'm trying to say? Now, with a better financial system, you can more easily do this with less conflict at home. Because if nobody feels that they're getting shafted, nobody's going to want to rebel against you. No one's going to fight. No one's going to, It's very simple. It's very easy. Moreover, again, getting rid of this dumb system will allow us to free ourselves from the shackles of this debt. We don't need to be serfs to these international bankers, these globalists. We need not do this. We can rebuild our own capital here based on the value of what we have here. And here can be any country in Western Europe, any country in the West, Australia, New Zealand. They can all do this on their own scales. All right? That's not even impossible. And it's way better than this, again, Rumpelstiltskin game where people pretend to weave straw into gold. Get out of here. They are simply punching numbers into computers. We can have a supercomputer do that for us. If it comes down to it, we can program a near artificial intelligence computer to say, computer, give us the optimum amount of money every year to keep the economy such. Give it good data, it'll give you good results. I mean, if that's what it's going to be, they can be more trusted than these bankers. I say that a machine is far more trustable than them. Now you see, but we need not borrow from them. We can almost, it sounds absurd, but borrow from ourselves. But what we're really doing is we're saying, okay, we're going to have this much productive time in a given year, and it'll produce this much surplus over what we had last year as an aggregate. Not we as in everyone together, aggregate, Let us bank on that and use some of it now, but repay it, It's not impossible, and it can be done. Okay? Again, even in a reduced state, America produces an awful lot of value of goods and services, but goods too. It must be much more goods, but that's preferably ones we can export. By switching back to an export economy slowly, we can encourage all of our trade partners to do this on some kind of equanimous basis and create real prosperity among all of ourselves by both not taxing the shit out of ourselves and having a stable financial system. And, of course, the political will that would underlie all this would be affirmative good as well. Yeah, something about people who actually care about the people in charge as compared to people who view them as economic bits. I mean, what would you prefer? Ruling castes that say, well, my people here, or one that are like my prophet here. Who would you prefer? Which would you prefer? Just think it through. Because you're only really going to be able to have it those two ways. I like to think of like globalist versus nationalist, if you will. Okay? You know? Which would you like? It all comes down to that. It's just like when the Romans were at Carthage with, will you have war or will you have peace? It can only be one or the other, you know? And if you choose globalists in charge, you will always have war inside society. Their very social theories predicate that they must be at war with you in this Darwinian struggle. I posit that a proper ruling class with a proper administrative class and a proper working class can all work together in sort of a collaborative way. And part of it is a financial system that doesn't rifle anyone's pockets unjustly, you know? I mean, yeah, the upper class are going to pay more tax, but they're also going to have more money to invest in this banking system, which will allow them to make slight amount of money back. Voila. You know? There's no injustice to this. They're, you know, let's look at it like they're gambling, if you like. They also are going to receive more benefits from society overall. Who do you think get the most benefits? The very rich, whom are protected from being pillaged. That's the main thing that they're paying for, protection from pillage. Don't like it, I don't like it. It is that way, though, you know? And in a collaborative society, you don't have to worry about this. I like to think of a collaborative society like an old English ship. You have a captain, some officers, and a crew, you know? And myths aside, either they all work together or they die. That's it, you know? Look at how the mutineers ended on the Bounty. Crashed on an island and marooned. Okay? Captain Bligh, on the other hand, and his people hung together, kept discipline, and they committed one of the great naval feats of history. They took a dinghy across the friggin' Atlantic, or the Pacific. Okay? A dinghy across the Pacific is quite the thing. It's quite the thing, quite the piece of seamanship. It took real resolve and real fucking spine. It's an underestimated thing that what Captain Bligh did after he was, you know, marooned in a ship with his officers and a few of the crew. Truly. You may think just, but God, man, he went something like 1,600 miles in that thing. That's a lot of sea travel, man. It's immense. You know? It's like, no, he did not, but yeah, he did. You know? Just think about it. They mutinied somewhere off of Hawaii, right? And as I recall, he found land again way on across, near on down by Australia. That's a long ways, man. That's a long ways. Especially in a dinghy. The Pacific is a desert, man. It's not some nice, you know? And he did that because of discipline. They collaborated. They worked together. They held tight. If you read about it, they even actually did the who shall have this. No favoritism about it. Pure luck, who ate what. You know what who shall have this is? It's where there's a man who cuts the things and holds it up, and another guy back to him who looks at everyone and points. He has no idea what the guy behind him is giving to whoever. No idea. It can be no favoritism. There's no favoritism to it all. And you rotate men in the positions, you see. Who shall have this? Okay? It's not a joke, you know? These things are, to me, they're interesting, you know? You see, you think all of these, like sort of disasters that you see, where people go just willy-nilly and start to think of each other as profit units, as, oh, how can I calculate my own best survival versus everyone else and all this other, you know, Malthusian bullshit, they normally perish, you know? But when they hold tight and they do what's right by each other, you know what's funny? They very often pull through. Why is that? I mean, let's look at the blacks in Hurricane Katrina and the whites that were wiped out around New Orleans, because there was way more of the whites, but you don't hear about them because they acted like proper humans, you know? They like banded together, and instead of like pillaging each other, they worked to procure things to help each other. You understand? Do you get the difference? One acted like savages and one acted like beings. I don't know how to put it, you know? Now this is just some of the very obvious, like to your eyes, it's apparent. The riots in LA. We can even make it non-white. Look at the Koreans. The Koreans said, no, Blackie, you're not taking my stuff. And yeah, they held tight and defended their stuff. And when the police came, they all lied for each other. They all lied for each other. They all flat out said, oh, that's not me on there. I don't say, man, I have alibi, you know? I respect that. A lot more than do most snitch whites. They would tell on each other, you know? They would tell on each other. They would tell. They'd rat on each other. Well, southern whites wouldn't, but most northern whites yank. They just rat on each other viciously, and they do. No loyalty. This is why we don't have a class collaborative society, because rats don't collaborate. Rats are always out for the biggest piece of cheese for themselves, and they will not even remotely think of anyone else but themselves. There are no nationalist rats, only globalist rats. You see? You know? Nationalists would be more akin to ants. You think ants are mindless and stupid? I say they've survived a lot longer than any mammals, right? I say that they have a fairly advanced system of living, actually. Comparatively, you think, what do you think a greater being would think of you? You know? I tell you, if you look at the ant, it does its work, it gets it done, they survive. You know? Right? You know, I mean, what's the problem with this? Name something. Should it be a grasshopper? The grasshopper dies. The ants go underground for the winter and they live. And they reemerge and they survive. Now, if you think of it as going underground, as sort of loggering up, as holding up through the bad times, well, a collaboration society where people care about each other can do that. Because remember, being bottled up in sort of a siege situation is stressful. The other society will wait out. They'll say, well, how much are these people worth and what do I need to betray them? Where you have like the patron and the clients kind of situation. They don't do these things, right? I mean, say what you like about the mafia, but once someone's paid them protection money, you can't pay them more money and buy them off. That's not part of the rules, my man. You see? Whereas a bureaucrat, you can always find their number. You can always find their number. Merchants versus warriors is another thing. Merchants are scum. Warrior societies, of which the mafia are the very remnants of the actual Roman collegia, they have different values. Respect, deference, these things are more important than money and profit. Profit may be present. Don't think it's mutually exclusive or anything. It's a matter of priorities of value. Respect, gravatus, You understand? Octorus and gravatus, like respect and weight, Much more important than money and profits. Money and profits are what shekel sniffers go after. You see? Think about the shekel sniffers. You can always offer them a pile of money, high enough to make them do anything you want. Other type peoples, it's like the Russian mafia run the same way. They have the same sort of, honor and respect system. You can't readily buy them off, right? In fact, if someone hired them to do something against you and you tried to merely buy them off like petty street thugs, there's a good chance you die over a couple weeks, painfully screaming. Yeah, they're brutal savages, right? But once they give them their word to a thing, you're 99.9% assured it's going to come to reality. Whereas merchants, you have to have contracts. They only have to give you their word. Their word and your handshake at most that's sufficient for all things. This is the big difference. In other words, one do not require courts to enforce what they do, and the other does. I don't know about you, but I would always prefer a social legal system that doesn't require courts, it doesn't require police, and that doesn't require some rat lawyers, scumbags, to constantly invent new laws when there really is just an underlying set of moralities, of mores, of social customs, to which we all basically know, how it should be. Are these objective? No, but either is law. Laws merely matter what's at advantage to the people writing the law. If it's proles writing the law, it's going to be the proles getting the lion's share. If it's rich, you get what I mean? It doesn't matter. So what's the difference here? Again, warrior values versus merchant values. Merchants prefer centralized authority and police and prisons. Warriors prefer a more loose authority, though there's always a central authority. A king, some king has his domain and he's an equal in it and so forth. We also prefer a sort of what we might call militias, auto policing units. Okay? And instead of prisons, we prefer corporal punishments. That is, well, I'll beat you or fine you. I don't want to put you underground in some dark place. I've been, that shit's, what's it? It just makes more violent people. Get out of here. I'll beat you into compliance. That's a warrior society. Do you see the difference? One is basically weak, and it thrives on weakness. It makes you weak so that it can enforce debility on you, commerce on you. And the other one deprives you of things on purpose to make you strive. Think of it like Mithraism versus Epicureanism. Okay? Mithraism was a manly religion, and it made you strong and want to overcome They would beat themselves, for God's sakes. Have each other beat each other. Imagine Roman soldiers flogging each other, and you have Mithraism. Yeah, that's some quality shit. Epicureanism, look around you. Happy, happy, happy. Okay? You know? Right? Now, this is where we're at. You know? And in my view, getting back to a warrior society is best done by pulling that linchpin. We're not actually warring with the world. Make this understood. If you're in Afghanistan and you're just itching to stay at war, don't worry, man. I got you covered. Don't get you covered. You're going to go to Central America and we're going to engage in some real warfare. I mean the kind where we wipe out whole political groupings. Did I say that bluntly? I did, didn't I? That's right, because merchants always obfuse. They always lie. They have no honor. Yeah, I don't. I'm not a merchant and I'm not a politician. I don't need your vote. God elected me. Thank you. Now, as it sits, Central America. Particularly, we would start strategically. San Salvador. The reason? They have the strongest leftist government. Your mission? Topple their government in San Salvador and crush the two gangs that underpin them. And when I say crush, I mean round up everyone with a tattoo and shoot them. Crush. Utterly eradicate. No mercy, no quarter, no surrender, no survivors, no prisoners. Okay? Now, I know that your contractors will follow those instructions. Don't worry. And you're the exact personnel I want. Because urban warfare is a bitch and it's a meat grinder on raw troops. You raw troops, you're going to go out to the countryside. You're going to get to learn insurgency the hard way. But don't worry, I'm a better paymaster than your old one. So I'm thinking, I find some of those old fucking African guys running around, I mean the white ones, and hire them to teach you about jungle warfare. Okay? They're some of the very best in the world. Mm-hmm. You know, and the last of those Condor guys, don't worry, I have a special place in my heart for you. Don't kid yourself. You'll be of great use before this is over, Klaus. Now, as it sits, what we would do, if we had our way from this point, is simply radiate out, control the isthmus completely, and then crush the Mexican cartels finally. That would be the final act. Once Guatemala and the rest were secure, we'd have a wall in the north and crush the cartels between us. And I mean crush. Now, in the process of doing this, we could send home all of these people's nationals. Hell, we could even send some of the Puerto Ricans to them. You know what I mean? Like, here, just have a few of these too. Whatever. It's a Hispanic country. It's not like it's hateful. Some of them have a better living than they have in the ghettos here. You know, on standard, on average. And if you got rid of these left-wing death squads that run through and kill these people on random, well, you know, it could help, couldn't you think? I'm thinking so. Right? Also, eliminating these bizarre communist policies that they have that there's no Soviet Union to back them anymore. Might be useful. And yeah, actually develop some kind of domestic industries. Gee, they'll stay home then. Especially when you tell them if you come back, we'll shoot you. How simple that is. You know, this is like your one free pass. We're doing all this right. We're making it right. Okay, American corporations and communists did this crap, but whatever. We'll clean it up for you this one time. Okay? That's great benefits. It keeps a reason for staying together during the rough time of the initial crumbling of this little petrodollar thing. Okay? It also allows us to dominate the Western Hemisphere right from the center. Hold the center and the rest will hold. Maintain the center. You understand? Control that canal. And we have utter strategic control of two oceans. But you know, I'm soft-headed, an idiot, right? What would I know? Yeah, a great deal more than you think. Because remember, if we can base a fleet at that canal, we can control two oceans with one fleet. This is a vast savings. It's a humongous savings. We can also sell off the other fleets to several other people, particularly Australia and Japan. Act as a counterweight to each other. The Japanese, they hate the Chinamen. You understand? The exact sort of people we want to have a fleet. They go to sea like tuna fish, and they absolutely despise the land chinks. Don't kid yourself. Don't lie to yourself. It's a real hatred there. Like, whew. They dislike us because we beat them. That's not a lie. Well, Americans rub it in their face too. The Americans have no honor. They can't. They don't have. They don't know about victory with honor. I don't know. You know. I try never to rub it in the Japanese's face. It's like, you attacked us, we attacked you, we won. I mean, you know what I mean? There can be nothing about it. You know? I mean, seriously. And several of my uncles died during this conflict. But whatever. It isn't like my uncles were up there wanting to give him a kiss. One of them was, shot in the head while process was chopping one of them with a machete. You know? I mean, come on now. Get real. Yeah, it's close combat. Guadalcanal. You know what I mean? Yeah. I mean, it isn't like either side were throwing each other roses. This isn't how it works, you know? So I don't have to hate these people. They're dead, you know? You never hate the dead. Why hate the spirit of the dead? It's stupid, you know? I live for the living. As it sits, though, most Americans can't do this. But the Japanese, they have the ability to hate over thousands of years, you know? And like a quiet hatred. The kind of thing it's almost imperceptible to the average Westerner. But they hate. And I mean hate the Chinese. And then there's the Koreans who, they don't favor the Chinks either, but they don't like the Japanese either. I think that could be used big time to our advantage. How? By flipping North Korea and using them to invade Manchuria? How else? Don't you know anything? Because the Manchus don't like the Chinamen either. You see? The Chinamen are probably the most disliked people in the entire world by all their neighbors. I think only the Jews might be more disliked. Seriously. It's not a joke. They're one of the most hated people. They're a high-handed imperial race that have behaved poorly towards all of their neighbors since 4000 BC. I mean, poorly. Look. The Chinese, in the annals of their history, have done every underhanded, two-faced, sideways, backhanded trick you can name. Okay, you could. It's like the Merovingians, but 4,000 years of it. Okay, have you ever read the history of the Merovingians? You really should. For a good time, go read through that a bit, and go read through, say, the Anglo-Saxon Chronicles. I mean, just murder, assassinations. This year this person went to war. This year there was a special event. Oh, there was a meteor this year. That kind of thing, right? Just there's just tons of murders and assassinations and deaths and. Oh, Jesus, And the Merovingians are ruthless. There's one where this girl wanted the queen's jewels, and the queen was like, oh, okay. So she had her put her head in a box and tried to crush her with the box. Right? You know what I mean? Like, seriously? Wow, man. And then it had to be strangled. The one had to be strangled to get the box open off the other one. And, oh, my Lord, right? It sounds like a 3-drink minimum biker party to me, right? But this is how Chinese was ran from the beginning. Don't let the little, no. Those eunuchs like to have a good time. Where do you think all the opium came from originally? It ain't like the British invented opium. Okay? No. The Chinese used opium way from the get-go. But the EIC did take it to obscene level. Obscene level might be the way to put it, right? But no, the bureaucrats and such, the eunuchs that were the main pillar of the state, the Chinese state, for 2,500 years or so. Yeah, they were dope addicts, and they did all sorts of other eccentric things. You could only imagine, right? The boys and small children and sadomasochism and all sorts of other bizarre. They were quite the little caste, right? There's a reason that the people under the communists so readily massacred them. Do you understand? Think that through. Again, you can't rile large groups of people into killing people that they don't like. Or that they like, Like if they like a king, you're not going to get the people to kill him easily. On the other hand, you have to kill him with a small clique, like the Romanovs. It would have been hard to get any of the peasants of Russia to kill the Tsar. I mean, really hard. I don't know, it could have been done, And I know the Tsarevich, there's no fucking way. Russians are, even the Russian mafia are strange about children in their way, I tear some of them up. They don't like to go tee off on children at all. Anyone's children. They're just not, I don't know, they're almost paternalistic, I guess, Though they are savage too, right? It's not... It's not mutually exclusive, right? So, and then the Tsar's daughters and such, no. Again, No, right? Those were select members of the People's Committee for Public Safety, right? Who were atheists and sodomites and such, yes, and Hebrews. I mean, they did this. This is how it is, right? Well, at least a few of them were denounced later as sodomites. I mean, let's say in the Stalin Purge. So, yeah, is it true? I don't know. Could be, probably. Yeah, seems about right. But when you think about it, look, the Romanov Tsar had produced the level of prosperity that France had 100 years earlier in Russia. He went from very little. Him and his immediate predecessor really put in some work for this. And the main problem with the peasants not having land was resolving itself. The Stolypin reforms, if they had been taken to the proper levels, there would have been no communist party. Do you understand? These peasants would have been small proprietors in the main, and there would have been village proprietorship beyond that, which it's not ideal, but it's better than being a serf. And it gives people a reason. It also provided a lot of surplus manpower. People say, well, okay, we have 6 sons at home. I guess 3 of them go to the factory, which put remittances to the countryside, which allowed for capital, which, this was creating development, growth, real growth. In fact, the fact is that the Tsar's level of growth, even in 1916, which is basically bad, it was never reached by the communists until sometime after World War II. Not real growth. We're talking funny numbers by Stalin and whatnot, but get out of here. Those are pure funny numbers. All the Stalinist planned economies are funny numbers. You'll notice that for Lenin had a grasp on real economics. Understand this. He wasn't a crackpot. He was a lunatic. But he wasn't, he had some grasp on empirical reality. You'll notice to keep the economy going, he had to allow peasant, small, sort of commercial exchanges freely so that there could be taxes brought in. Okay? He had to do this. Think that through. Why did Stalin get rid of this, you ask? Centralized tendencies. Stalin is the same as any merchant-minded bastard. Centralized, he's like the penultimate expression of their values. Money, profit over everything. And, the Soviet Union produced an awful lot of surplus. Where'd it go? God only knows. There's no real accounting. If you believe those God's plan numbers, you're a tool. Right? Now, the fact is that when you look at it, what did Stalin have? Massive repressive police force, an immense prison gulag system, right? and a thoroughly censored, political climate. It's the ultimate merchant. It's like the communists are just they have these alleged bads of communism. There are all these merchants and they steal your things. Oh, so we'll just make it one big merchant that can steal all your things. Yeah, that's a solution set, all right. It's like cutting off your head because you have a headache. Make no sense. And what do you think you are, Zeus, and you're gonna birth Athena? Come on now, my man. Come back. That's a story now. See. This is the kind of strangeness that gets stupid. See, when you're free of the mercantile values, you can see through this stuff. You can say to yourself, hey, communism doesn't fail because of central planning. That could work with enough actual, up-to-date empirical data from enough sources. In theory, it could work. It doesn't fail because of that. It fails because it basically is designed to steal. It's not designed to bring long-term goals, It's designed so that a party can replace the so-called capitalists and steal. Because that's exactly how they view it now. They think the capitalists steal. So what they're doing is stealing for themselves. It's a ridiculous system, okay? Because it's based entirely on wrong premises. Capitalists don't necessarily steal. Some of them are dickheads, and some of them are not, Communists can't deal with this. Everything has to be black, white, black, white, black. It's just like there are rich people in America who are not twats and who are nationalist-minded, or at least civic nationalist-minded, right? There are middle-class people who are outright globalists, and there are working-class people that fit the lumpen proletariat, of communists. But this doesn't mean that any one of these classes in particular are disloyal, That's bad thinking. You know what I'm saying? It's bad thinking, It's just there are certain members of each class. Oh, man. It's like I'm having a nosebleed. That,